Dearly beloved, we have gathered here to get through this thing called life. Life, L.Y.F, stands for Love Yourself First. I'm your host, Cola Taylor, and I'm here with Mrs. Chanise Anderson, trademark attorney with Mark Set Go Law Firm in Massachusetts. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to just talk about all things business.
You guys focus on protecting the brands of rising entrepreneurs with legal literacy, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Specifically focusing on intellectual property, trademarks, copyright law, and just protecting your business overall with contracts and just making sure that your LLC is operating according to your standard law in your state.
When I first came into contact with you, it was on Instagram. You have these TikTok videos and, you just spinning all this knowledge that I have no idea about. So I'm like, okay, if I don't know anything about it, I'm sure other people, may not know the same thing. So definitely some things to get to know. So let's just start at the beginning. Like what should you do to start when you're doing your LLC?
Well, the primary thing is let's talk about what people do and let's talk about what should be done. Okay. So what people do is they wake up one day, or maybe they spoke with a friend, or maybe they did some research online and they're like, I want to start a business. Everybody's starting businesses. I want to start one. And then they automatically go and they file their articles of organization, which is the formal document needed to create a legal entity. And in most cases, the most common legal entity is a LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Protection Corporation, because it provides limited liability protection. And people just they go on their Secretary of State's website, they search to see if their name is available, and bingo, no one has my name. And then they go and they form this corporation. However, what should be done instead is that you should reach out to either a business attorney in your state or an attorney who specializes in trademark law, and allow them to perform a search of your name nationwide, not just in your state. Because what will happen is you go to form that LLC in Massachusetts, the Secretary of State's database isn't telling you about another corporation who has that exact name in California or in Florida or in Nevada. So you now just chose a name for your LLC that probably is trademarked by someone else in Arkansas. And now you are infringing, assuming that you provide similar services or sell similar goods, you could be infringing on that trademark because a trademark trumps the name of your LLC. In fact, on articles of organization, on the document itself, it says that basically we didn't do a search across the country. Like, this doesn't protect your name outside of this state. So that's the first step that people should do, is speak with a trademark lawyer, have them do a search of your name to see if it's available, assuming that your name is going to be the same name that you're going to use for your trademark later down the road.
And, that's definitely something that isn't common knowledge, because like you said, somebody says, hey, you want to start a business, go and start an LLC. And the process itself isn't that hard. Like, it's very quick. And you're like, oh, okay, well, then I'm done. I have this document that says that I own a business. I'm a business owner. And then you turn around and something might happen, because you didn't do the proper search.
Exactly.
That's crazy. So what are so being that as it may, what is the purpose of the LLC itself?
That's a great question. So an LLC is for liability purposes, and then versus a trademark, which is for your brand. And so because the name suggests LLC, a limited liability corporation, the purpose of the LLC is to act as a bubble, right? So what it does is, I give an analogy all the time of a vehicle. So pretend like your LLC is the car and you sit in the car, right? And so that if something were to happen in your business, or if a business deal went wrong, right? because I'm owned by an LLC, or I operate under an LLC, whatever goes wrong in my business can't be attached to me because I'm in a car. My LLC protects me. It protects my personal assets. It protects my bank accounts. It protects my house. It protects my car. It protects any other personal assets that I may have in my personal name. And when I say a bubble, it's important to note that bubble, I often speak about this on my videos, is that bubble can be pierced. And now you're exposed. And that's what we call piercing the corporate veil. Because although you are an LLC and you're inside of that bubble, or although you have an LLC, I should say, because you and your business are separate entities, although you sit in this bubble, if you are not operating like an LLC and behaving like an LLC, this bubble could be pierced and now everything's exposed, your personal assets, your bank accounts, your car, and you're gonna be like, oh, but I have an LLC. Okay, but did you sign your contracts in the name of your LLC? Have you been commingling your business funds with your LLC? Do you have business insurance? So there are things that you need to start doing when you become an LLC. So the purpose of it is to protect your assets, but if you're not doing it correctly, you can lose that protection that LLC gives you.
So you mentioned business insurance. Like, I didn't know anything about business insurance. So who exactly, like what businesses does that apply to? You know, like, I mean, like, so like, for instance, like this podcast, that, you know, if I'm treating this as a business, should I have business insurance for it? Or is it more for more tangible things that you're selling?
Yeah, so business insurance is great for all types of businesses. Believe it or not, there's business insurance for every field of work. So whether you are a podcaster, whether you're a YouTuber, whether you are you sell cookies, whether you sell cosmetics, because it's not just for your specific business. There are different types of business insurance. You have general liability insurance, you have professional liability insurance, you have intellectual property insurance. And so there are different variations of business. And I have a post that I just made it like a few days ago about business insurance and the four companies that I recommend using for businesses. I have other businesses that I operate, and these are the business insurance companies that I've used that I personally recommend to my clients. And again, there are different types of business insurances that would be specific for podcasters, right? Because even though you may not be selling anything, right? You may not be selling literal goods that people are consuming, and that may be, you know, someone could sue you for food poisoning. Maybe there's a breach of, maybe what if you enter into a contract with someone, right? You have a guest on your show and you guys signed a contract and that contract deal goes bad. Okay, so if your company was sued, what is protecting your company? Your LLC protects you, but what's protecting your LLC? It's kind of like driving a car. Okay, your car is protecting you because you're inside the car, so you're not going to maybe get hit by that tractor trailer, but what's going to protect the car as far as who's going to pay for the damages? And so that's how you have to look at your LLC. Who's going to pay for the damages if my company were sued? Because your bank, maybe you don't have enough money in the bank account and your LLC doesn't have enough money to pay that judgment. But that's the purpose of the business insurance, to say, look, we got you covered. This falls within your policy. We can make that, maybe you have to pay a deductible, obviously, just like with our cars. But at least you know that you have that protection there so that your business doesn't go bankrupt or insolvent because you didn't have business insurance in place.
Okay. So what about a sole proprietorship? You know, like with that, that's basically you're not actually paying for like an LLC or anything like that. You're just operating as a business.
So a sole proprietor, you don't have that bubble. You are simply just exposed. You're just outside naked. So you and your business are considered the same purposes for liability purposes and for tax purposes. So that means that if I sell cookies and I'm just a sole proprietor and I have no LLC, if someone says, I'm going to sue you because you sold me cookies, who are they suing? They're suing you as an individual. There is no company to sue because you and your company are one and the same.
So yeah, don't do that.
So don't do that. Yeah.
Right.
Get it. You can, it's okay. I say in the beginning stages, possibly depending on, because each state's LLC costs are different. And so it may not be justified forming an LLC right off the first step. A lot of people just think, oh, I'm just going to form an LLC, but maybe depending on the type of business, I want to be very careful because it depends on the type of business. And so if you are in a high risk business, meaning you sell either tangible items that people are consuming, you're increasing your liability risk, right? Or if you sell products that people are putting on their skin, again, you're increasing your liability risk because maybe someone could get allergic reaction, someone could break out, someone could choke on one of your, like anything of any of those scenarios can happen. And so it depends on a lot of factors. Is LLC recommended? Absolutely. I would absolutely recommend it over a sole proprietorship any day. But again, as an attorney, I evaluate every business venture differently. I'd have to ask questions. I'd have to see what are your long-term goals, what are your short-term goals, to give you a better answer of whether operating as a sole proprietorship makes more sense in the beginning, and then eventually getting you to a different type of corporation.
What about companies? Because I know you said that you should speak to an attorney about whatever you're trying to do with your business. What about companies like LegalZoom?
Oh, all right. So LegalZoom. So first of all, LegalZoom isn't a law firm. They can't provide legal advice. In fact, they say go consult an attorney. You could read the information we have. They have a great website that provides great information, but they're not allowed to give you legal advice. And it's not a substitute for an attorney. We have a doctorate in law. Like, this is what we do. And then sometimes, yes, it can be costly depending on, the type of things that you may want to do. LegalZoom is good for maybe some things, but it's certainly not good to just have a LegalZoom there when you're trying to run a legitimate business. Like, you shouldn't be relying on LegalZoom. You should have an attorney in your circle, in your corner that you can consult with. Some attorneys will do flat fees. Some of them would do like running retainers, where you can just have them there and say, hey, look, I have a business question. Can we do a consultation and whatever, charge you for that amount? Definitely don't recommend LegalZoom as your sole legal source when you are running a business.
Okay. So can I develop okay, if I have a business and say I want multiple business within this one umbrella, do I have to form one LLC for all those different aspects of the business, or should I have like multiple LLCs per, like, I guess, business entity?
Well, this is a good time to use my diagram,
Okay,
to
great.
use my board. I didn't know you were going to ask me that question, but I was like, let me just have this whiteboard just in case I need to draw. I like to be very specific when I give examples, and I think this will help us illustrate that scenario. So the answer, again, my answer to everything is literally probably going to be, it depends, right? Mm-hmm. And so let's look at the answer is yes, and the answer is yes. You can have multiple businesses under one LLC, but with that answer having yes, the reason why I say depends is because it can become very dangerous having multiple businesses under one LLC, and I'll show you why. Let's assume that I have C. Anderson LLC, as you can see, right? C. Anderson LLC, and then let's just say I have C Bakes because I sell, I have a bakery shop. And then I have C Cos because I sell beauty products. And then C Gear because I sell clothing, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously those are three different businesses. Maybe one of them is a brick and mortar store, or maybe I just do online. So I have one LLC, as you can see, but I have three DBAs. Three different companies. I'm doing business as C Bake selling cookies. I'm doing business as C Cosmetics selling beauty products, and I'm doing business as C Gear selling clothing. Now, what can happen if you set up your LLC this way is that if someone eats one of my cookies, right? Somebody buys one of my cookies and they're like, oh my God, I got food poisoning. I had to go to the hospital. I incurred a lot of medical bills. I missed 2 days of work. I'm suing you for $15,000, right? Now, what they could also do is not only just sue C Bakes, but they can now sue C Cosmetics, C Gear Clothing, because all of them are under one LLC. So whatever happens in this LLC affects what happens in that LLC, and also affects what happens, affects what happens in that DBA, and then also affects what happens here as well. Whereas if you had C. Anderson LLC, let's say C Realty LLC, and then I had C Bakes LLC, and then C Gear again LLC. Someone bought one of my shoes and it wasn't what they expected, and I didn't want to give them their money back, and we had this contract dispute of some nature. Then what happens in C Gear LLC stays in C Gear LLC. They cannot go after my C Bakes LLC. They cannot go after C Realty LLC, because these are all three separate entities. So it doesn't, the liability of one doesn't affect the liability of the others.
Okay, so it's probably better to have them separate just in case.
Yeah. If, however, the only time I would recommend possibly where the risk, although you have multiple DBAs under one LLC, is if the different business ventures that you're doing are kind of related to one another, kind of like I sell cookies, but I also sell cakes, but I just use a different name. And then I also sell like, I also do like catering, right? Those business ventures are kind of all related anyway. And so rather than having three LLCs and paying three different costs when you're doing the same business or very similar business, it does probably make sense in that case to have them under one LLC. But if the business ventures are so different from one another, it really doesn't make sense exposing one business venture to something that has nothing to do with the other business venture. It just doesn't make sense. So you have to look at the relatedness between the businesses, the cost to upkeep them, and just the risk, and making sure that you have that business insurance in place.
That makes sense. So can I purchase property as an LLC?
Yes, you can. It's the requirements are stricter. The interest rate is higher. The down payment requirement is greater, as opposed to doing it yourself, but it is possible. Usually, depending on the state, some states, especially as an LLC, will require 25% or more down. And again, the interest rates are going to be higher than if you purchased it as an LLC, but it is absolutely possible to purchase it as an LLC. You can purchase vehicles as an LLC as well. There are many things you can do. LLC, again, that's the advantage of having one over a sole proprietorship, because you're not able to do those things because you and your business are one. So there really is technically no business when you're doing a sole proprietorship. With an LLC, if your LLC can't, one thing you can do is purchase a property in your name and then deed it over to your LLC, so that the property is now, you purchased it in your own name, use your credit, your income, and then you deeded it over to your LLC. So then again, that property is protected, again, goes inside that bubble that LLC shields you.
Okay, so excuse me. So being that as it may, because I know in one of your videos you said if you are an LLC, then you need to act like it. In that case, is that what you mean when you say to act like it, to purchase property under it, if it's dealing with the business, buying equipment with it as a business? Is that what you mean?
To some extent, I wouldn't say just go out and buy property under your LLC. That I don't think that's necessarily, I think that's more of an advantage of an LLC as opposed to acting like an LLC. But when it comes to property, like real property, right? But when it comes to business assets, like business equipment, all of those should be purchased under your LLC's name. So if, for example, you're starting a new business, example, like a podcast, right? There's equipment that you need to start a podcast. You're going to need maybe the headphones that you have, the microphone, maybe some software to edit your videos. Possibly you want to upgrade and get a new computer. All of those things should be purchased from your so that's when when you get an LLC, you open up a business bank account, and obviously you're going to need to put you're a new business, so you're going to need to put money in that business bank account. Possibly it came from your own personal funds, but once that goes in that account, that money is now the business's money, and so you're going to use the business's money to make those purchases. Don't use your personal credit cards. Don't use your personal bank accounts. All of the money that goes to start up your business, to maintain your business, should come from the business's bank account. And this will also allow you to, when tax time comes, make it much easier to prove to the IRS that these things are deducted, should be deducted, tax deductions, and you can provide proof to say, look, here's my business bank account, and here are all the purchases I made, as opposed to, it came from your personal bank account. Then they're gonna be like, oh, was that really for your business, or was that for your personal use? It kind of gets a little murky. So you want to make sure that you have clear and convincing evidence, and just keeping them separate allows you to be able to prove to your accountant and your CPA that this really was for business purposes.
I wish I would have known that beforehand.
Yeah, it's I always say it's never too late to start doing it. You were probably doing it before because possibly you just didn't know, but now that you know, start doing it, because if you get audited, or if something comes up, at least you can say, well, look, I probably wasn't doing that in the past, but I'm now doing it. I'm now doing better. I'm keeping my things separate. And and then one thing that I would like to mention when it comes to business cards and personal cards is that if because like as a new LLC, you're not going to off the bat qualify possibly for business credit right away. That's something that you have to build over time, right? So people may say, well, I can't qualify for business credit, so how can I like buy all these things for my business? Like I need to use a card. Like maybe I don't even have the cash to do. I need to use a credit card, and I can't qualify for a credit card because I'm a new business. So I can't qualify for a business credit card. Well, one thing you can do is use a personal credit card to buy that, but that personal credit card, you have to make sure that personal credit card that you're using is solely for business purposes. So if you have 3 credit cards, maybe your other 2, 1, 2, 3 credit cards, take credit card number 1, and although it's in your personal name, because you can't qualify for a business credit card, make sure that no purchases that are going on this card are for personal use. It's all strictly, you use this card strictly for business. So that's one thing you can do if you don't have the cash to, start your business up in the beginning stages.
Well, that's great advice. So should you trademark your name? And I mean like your personal name.
It's not a matter of should, it's a matter if whether you can. Names are very hard to trademark unless you can prove to the federal government that your name has attained some type of secondary meaning, right? That your name is a source identifier of your services. So if my name, Chanise Anderson, like that's my brand, like that's the name of my law firm, that's the name of my YouTube channel. Like everybody, when you think of Chanise Anderson, you think of that attorney, you think of that law firm, you think of that YouTube entertainer. So your name has to, it just can't be like, oh, I want to trademark my name. What are you using your name to do? So for example, like trying to think of artists that have trademarked their actual names.
Well, Rihanna,
like Shakira,
with Fenty, right?
Yeah, but it's Fenty by Rihanna, so her brand is Fenty, so that's what she's trademarked. But even Shaquille O'Neal, like he's trademarked that name, but or Tyra Banks, she has a trademark for her name, and under her name, everybody knows Tyra Banks. When you think of Tyra Banks, that name is a source identifier. You think, oh, Tyra Banks, the model or the TV host, right? Or she even had a show called Tyra Banks Show. So the name is associated with a service that she provides. So you can't just trademark your name just to trademark it. It has to serve as a source identifier of either goods that you're selling or of services that you're providing.
See, the first time I've ever heard of that was when Jay-Z and Beyonce had Blue Ivy, and they said that they were trademarking her name, and I never even heard that. I'm like, how do you, like, she's not even born yet and you're trademarking her name?
Yes, you can trademark anything. Again, as long as you can prove well, you can't trademark anything. Most things you can trademark, but
Mhm.
you can trademark something so long as you can prove that you're using that name to, again, provide a service or sell goods. So under Blue Ivy, they trademark that name because they intend to do things with that name. They intend to make it into a brand, like sell clothing and sell baby items and children items. So they intend to take that name and make it, when you think of Blue Ivy, you're like, oh, that's the children clothing line or something like that. So yeah, you can, if you have children and you want to do something with their name, and for example, I don't know if you've heard of Ryan's World. Is this
Yeah.
young kid on YouTube. He has over like 40 trademarks, as just he's only like 10.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
he
little boy with
makes,
the toys, right?
yes, he has a YouTube channel. He makes toothbrushes, toothpaste, kids' toys. So his name, Ryan's World, is trademarked in all of those categories, right?
Mm.
So yeah, you can trademark your name, again, as long as you have sufficient proof.
Wow. I need Ryan's parents.
I'm telling
Just-
you, I
like,
know
how do
they're
you
setting
do
him up.
that? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can trademark something before you start selling it. So for example, Blue Ivy, it's the application has been filed, but obviously like they haven't launched anything. There's, you can't go on Blue, you can't go purchase her baby's clothes or whatever she's selling. So you at least, I shouldn't say you can trademark it. You can start the process for the trademark before you start selling. And it's called an intent to use application, meaning that you are not yet using the name in commerce, but you intend to use it. And that's what Beyonce did. She says, we're not yet using it. We haven't yet sold products or launched anything, but we intend to use it. And we kind of want to reserve the name, basically.
Oh, okay. I mean, and it's kind of crazy too, because I know Blue Ivy's name, but I don't know the other two.
Yeah, I don't know it right now. I did know it at one point, and their names are trademarked as well.
Oh, crazy. See.
She doesn't play about her kids. She does not play about her
Apparently
children.
not. Look, I don't blame her. Look, let me tell you, if I have kids, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Try to
yeah.
set them up in some kind of way. So, generational wealth and all that.
Right. Absolutely.
Um, what kind of business? Well, we already mentioned that the business insurance, but what do the trademark symbols mean? Like I've always known TM for trademark, but from your Instagram, I've noticed that there are two other ones.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you have TM, which stands for trademark. You have SM, which stands for service mark, and you have R, that means registered, and then you also have C, which is copyright. So TM is the informal way of telling people that, look, I basically want you to know that belongs to me, right? It's not registered with the federal government. So by using TM, you have no federal rights. There really is very little advantage to when you see people, I should say very little significance when you see people using TM. It really doesn't really mean much. It just says that, look, I'm probably either in the process of getting to the R, like my application is pending, or I just want you to know that I'm claiming common law rights to this name or this phrase, just so that you don't go and try to steal it from me. But it has no legal significance. You should start using it like just to basically let the public know, kind of as it's kind of like a PSA. Hey guys, I just want you to know that Marks at Go law, whatever, is mine. It belongs to me. But if I didn't file a federal trademark, I mean, I don't have any federal rights. So it's a little more complicated than that, but that's the simplest version of saying, the simplest way of saying it. But this R mark means that my TM has now become an R. I registered it with the federal government. I have federal rights. If you try to use my name to do what I'm doing, I will sue you in federal court. I will recover attorney fees. I will recover profits that you made using my name. There are just so many advantages to having an R. I can send you a cease and desist letter. I can register my name at the US, at the border of protection to prevent people from bringing in counterfeit goods, et cetera, et cetera. SM is the same thing as TM, but SM is when you are providing a service. So a podcast, your podcast is a service, Mark. So you would use SM if you don't have if you don't have a federal trademark. So you should be using SM. TM is for people who provide goods, like sell goods. So if you were selling shirts for your podcast, you would use TM. But if you are just doing a service based, then you would use SM. So like influencers are usually SM, YouTube channels, SM. But like if you have a cosmetic line or apparel line, you'd be TM. And then SM will also eventually become an R. TM will also eventually become an R. And then the C is just for copyright.
And that's for written materials, right?
Exactly, for content. Exactly.
So what is the most important piece of advice that you would give to people who are just starting out?
Invest in your business. And that looks like, I know it's a scary investment. I know it's an unknown investment, but what if, but if you really intend to operate your business as a business and not a hobby, you have to sacrifice. You have to make the sacrifices up front. And the most important sacrifice you can make above an LLC, above marketing, is protecting your name. Because without your name, your brand means nothing, right? Without Fenty, the brand Fenty, the cosmetic line means nothing. I mean, think about how powerful brands are, to the fact that like you would see a M on a highway and know that that's McDonald's, that you would hear "just do it" and know that that's Nike. You would see the swoosh, that they don't even have to put their name on their shirt. All they have to do is just put the symbol and you can tell that that's Nike. Imagine that some people would rather drink Starbucks over Dunkin' Donuts because of the brand, because of the mentality that's associated with, oh, Starbucks is kind of this kind of like posh up, like fancy, or even Target. Oh, Target over Walmart, Starbucks over, it just goes to show you how powerful brands are. And so if you want your brand to be as powerful as that, without a trademark, you haven't protected it. So meaning it's for the streets. If I see that you haven't filed a trademark for your name, I'm going to go do it for you. I'm going to go and file it before you. As if you are the first person to start to use that name, and then someone goes and tries to file a trademark for that name, you do have something called common law rights, and you basically can oppose their application. Even though you didn't file for a trademark yet, you can oppose their application to say, look, I was the first one to use that. Look at my Facebook post back from 2013. I was the first one to use it, but that process is so expensive. So why not just make the sacrifice upfront, as opposed to waiting to that moment when someone goes and tries to use your name before you, and now you have to shell out thousands of dollars to save your name when you could have just protected it in the very first place.
And about like, what's the price range into which that would cost?
So to get a federal trademark, it varies. The price varies. Honestly, it's a very wide range. It could vary between $1,500 and $3,000 for one trademark. My firm charges $1,500, and that can be split up into 3 payments. So it's $500 a month for 3 months, and versus the cost of possibly rebranding and changing your entire name, depending on how big you are, how much you've invested so far. I mean, that could range anywhere from $5,000 to, for bigger companies, I've seen bigger companies spend over $100,000 trying to rebrand. Imagine you have to buy all new labels, you have to get a new domain name, you have to change all your social media handles. Like, think about you have to change your LLC name. Imagine do it like all the price that comes with that. I've literally had people say, I just ordered 5,000 whatever products from China with my name on it. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry to tell you that's not, you can't use that. You're infringing on someone's trademark. So I literally tell people that every day. That's literally at least one time a day, I tell people that they have to rebrand, right? Versus the cost of, let's say you decide, well, I'm not going to pay that $1,500 and I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Like, I'm just gonna take my chances. And then let's say I go and try to trademark your name because you're not doing anything. I really like your name. I'm gonna go trademark it. First of all, how are you gonna even know that that person went and did that, right? You just,
Right. I was gonna
unless
ask.
you, yeah, right. Most of the time people don't know. And you have only 5 years. You can only oppose that application within 5 years. So if you find out 6 years later that someone went and trademarked your name, or even 5 years, 1 month later, too late, sorry, that name is now officially gone. But let's say you found out at the 4 year mark, oh my God, like, let's say you're like, oh, okay, I'm ready to get serious. I'm gonna go trademark my name. And you go and type it in the, USPTO database, and you're like, wait, someone really trademarked my name? And you're still within that 5 year period, you can cancel their application, their trademark, that is. And the cost to do that minimum is going to be $5,000, because you need an attorney. You're going to have to it's basically like a mini trial. Most of the time the lawyers can I'm actually in the middle of a cancellation right now. Someone went and trademarked my client's name. And the only reason why we knew was because they came to me and says, we're ready to file a trademark. And I'm like, oh, that name was trademarked last year. And for her, she said, well, I want to cancel it. I've been using this name for 10 years. And so I filed a cancellation of the trademark. And now we're in the attorney and I are in the process of negotiating. But again, that price to do that back and forth, and God forbid this go to trial, you're talking minimum $5,000.
That's crazy. Because I'm just thinking about just changing my name, like if I were to get married or something like that, that's already a process, because you have to think of everything that you already have your name on, whether it's your house, your car, your birth certificate, like there's so many things that you have your name on. So as a business, and especially as a larger business, to have to rebrand, and you have to think of all those places that you have your name out there, and you have to I guess, program everybody to think, okay, I'm no longer Nike, I'm Schnikey, like.
That's it. That's the most detrimental thing is, will you lose customers now because
Right.
they've gained loyalty and trust with you, knowing you as Nike, and now you just switched it up on them? Like, what if Louis Vuitton one day announced, yeah, no, we're no longer Louis Vuitton, we're something else? Like, are you still going to be with them? Because now Louis Vuitton kind of has to rebrand themselves as this new company, and you got to, see how you really like it. How do you like the name? How do you like the look? I had a client recently had to go through that whole thing. She had to make a big announcement on several clients. They've made big announcements on their to their Instagram family, like, we're no longer going by this name because of legal purposes. And some left and some stayed, but that's the consequence of not protecting your brand.
Yeah, well, definitely go out there and protect your brand.
For sure.
Definitely do that. So is there something else that, because I know we mentioned earlier that, the common misconception that the LLC completely protects you. Are there any other like myth busters that you have?
I'm like trying to think off the top of my head. I'm sure there are, but I just nothing's coming to my mind right now. I think the major ones is that the LLC shields me completely, that there's nothing that can be done to pierce that bubble. But like I said, if you don't act like one, that's a lie. And I think the main one that comes to mind is that by having an LLC, my name is protected. I think that's the biggest thing, is that, oh, I formed an LLC in Texas, Chanise Pancakes. I'm good. Like, my name is safe. And it's just like, your name is only good in your state. It doesn't go beyond that. Your LLC is regulated by your state. So your name is limited to your jurisdiction. And so outside of your state, your neighboring state, your competing states, they can go and open up, do what the same thing you do using Chanise Pancakes, because you didn't get a federal trademark. Federal trademark will trump the name of every LLC.
And that's interesting that you say that, because I went for a job interview sometime before the pandemic, and it was a gas station called Tom Thumb. So I did all my research, online for Tom Thumb gas stations. And I went to the interview very confident, like, okay, this is what I heard about Tom Thumb, and the guy was like, yeah, that's not us.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, how is it not you? You said your name is Tom Thumb, but apparently
Wow.
there's two different Tom Thumb entities, and I have no idea. Like, apparently the one here has been around a little bit longer than
Yeah.
the one in Texas. But yeah, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're still operating under that name. I don't know if they're in litigation or what.
Well, they probably neither of them have a trademark, or if they do, one got it too late, so that he can't stop the one who started using it first. Because like, although once you get a trademark, that doesn't mean that everybody in the past, that you can now go tell everybody to stop using it. It doesn't really work like that. I mean, they could still use it, but limited to just their very like local jurisdiction, their little town. They can't really do anything beyond that. But it becomes very complicated now, because like, how do you tell everybody that was using it before you trademarked it that they can no longer use the name? Like, you kind of just waited too late. So now that little town gas station in Arkansas is gonna still operate as that name.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on to Life, Miss
Yes,
Chanise
thank you.
Anderson.
Thank you so much. This is fun. I really enjoyed it, and thank you for having me.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So, do you want to give your social media handles?
Yes, so I recently changed it. It used to be at Mark Set Go Law. It is now at The Real Lawyer. That's the REEL Lawyer. The name of my firm is Mark Set Go Law. www.marksetgolaw.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again for coming on Life. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.
You too.
All right, take care.